You have to go into the guidance counselor and you have to tell him what you want to do for your career. I thought I was a little ahead of the curve because I knew I wanted to work, I was hoping to work someday in sports media. He looks at my grades and looks at my transcripts and he says, well, Billy, there's no jobs in that field. And if there were any, you're not getting them. Now, here I am 42 years later and worked in television pretty much ever since. We celebrated the 10-year anniversary of Dirty Water TV, which is now 18 years. We had at the House of Blues. Jimmy turned to me and they talked. This was a great moment just before we stepped out onto the stage. And he said, hey, Billy, thanks for taking a shot with me. Business has never been better. There's been no looking back.
Having a beer with Fred is really about getting to people's passion and what makes them tick. Why are they amazing entrepreneurs? Why are they trying to accomplish something? That is what I'm hoping to do through these podcasts and through these discussions and through having a beer with a friend or a new friend or somebody that I find interesting. At the end of the day, having a beer and having honest, frank, clear conversation that inspires our audience is what it's about.
Cheers, my ears. Here's to show business, Fred.
Well, you introduced me to it.
Well, we're out to the races, the brave new world here. Fred Forsley. Like I said, we're Huntley and Brinkley.
So this is Billy Fairweather. I'll give you a little bit of his background. He'll give you a little more, but Billy's become a very good friend over the last 12 years. I think, is it 12 years?
Yeah, we've been working together, Dirty Water TV and Shipyard and Ice Pick for, well over a decade.
So let's go back to high school.
Yeah.
You've told me some amazing stories, like you were most likely to succeed. Of course, star athlete, whatever. I don't know.
I don't know if any of those stories were ever told, Fred. I think I might have told you I had a guy.
One, you had a guidance counselor.
I did, yeah.
And what was his name?
He was, well, we're not gonna give his name. We're gonna bash him, so we're not gonna give his name. But you have to go into the guidance counselor and you have to tell him what you want to do for your career, even though you're 16 years old and most people don't know it.
1977,
78, 79, in that ballpark, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought I was a little ahead of the curve because I knew I wanted to work, I was hoping to work someday in sports media.
Right.
So I went into the guidance counselor's office and I was all excited because I at least knew what I wanted to do in my
Wild
career.
World of Sports or something like that.
I wanted to work in sports media, sports writer, radio, television, anything. I just wanted to get in the door, right? Big sports fan, read the Boston Globe sports page every day. That seemed like a great way of life. Listened to Eddie Andelman on the radio and sports talk, and obviously watched Bob Lobel and local news, and then, ESPN.
All in Boston.
All in Boston, right. I wanted to work in sports media in Boston was my goal. And so anyway, I go in and see my guidance counselor and pretty happy that I know what I want to do. And he looks at my grades and looks at my transcripts and my scores and all that type of stuff and thumbs through everything and closes the book. And he says, well, Billy, I want to tell you two things. One, there's no jobs in that field. And, which was probably right. There weren't a lot of stations back at the time. It was before the internet. And so if you were going to work in sports media, you had to work in.
Even before cable.
Yeah. Well, cable was just starting out. It was just ESPN started in 79. So this was right around the same time.
Okay.
And he said, there's no jobs in that field. And then, and then came to the more challenging news which was, and if there were any, you're not getting them.
He wasn't a big Bill fan.
No, he looked at the grade.
He wasn't taking that bet.
He wasn't really optimistic about the future.
The next how it goes south.
Right. And so I took a couple of days and was kind of, knuckle dragging that my hopes and dreams and careers were over at the ripe old age of 16 and a half. and decided, you know what, regardless of what this guy had to say, I was still going to try to pursue a job in F. And now here I am 42 years later and worked in television pretty much ever since. Got a job, worked with Bob Lobel while I was still interning in college, and then got a job.
For those that don't know, who's Bob Lobel?
So Bob Lobel is the most famous local sports television broadcaster to ever come out of the city of Boston.
Okay.
And he really, Bob was on the air in the early 80s at a time that local television was really at its peak.
Yeah.
And from a sports standpoint, if you wanted to know anything about the Red Sox or Bruins or Celtics or Patriots or Boston College at the time, which was big with Doug Flutie or Marvin Hagler, who was great.
Yeah. Bob LaBelle was
local sports scene, which was Bob LaBelle on Channel 4 and Mike Lynch on Channel 5, and then the guys who were Channel 7 at the time. But that's where people went to consume their sports on television. They went to the local news. And just the same way ESPN.
radio or TV at the
it was television. It was WBZ, Channel 4.
WBZ. Yeah.
He was on with Mike Dowling and another guy named Don Shane and a woman named Alice Cook, who was another reporter. And, of course, he had the great sports reporter on with him, Bob Newmeyer, who was one of the great storytellers of the day. So LaBelle was the anchor.
Newmeyer, mentors and
absolutely
people you looked up to.
Yeah, and this was a network that I was happy just to watch Bob LaBelle on TV, and then to get an internship with him, and then ultimately my internship with Bob and Alan Miller and Bob Newmeyer and the rest of the sports department there led to getting my first jobs in the sports media business. And Bob is a great friend to this day, as is Alan Miller and all those people that I started with back in 1982, 83, 84 in that standpoint. Yeah, so very fortunate to be kind of a fly on the wall in that sports department because of my internship at Fitchburg State, which was 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
I wasn't in there 1 day a week for 3 hours. I was in there 5 days a week.
You were working.
And so that really helped become more of the team and
what years for that? What years?
83.
Yeah.
83, 84. Yeah.
And I gave you a big break to get with, I know you told me you were with ESPN for close to 20 years.
15 years, yeah. And so I did 10 years after working with LaBelle. I worked another 10 years in local sports in Boston. I worked for Nesson. I worked for Sports Channel doing the Celtics.
Yeah.
And then in 1987, I got hired by Channel 56, which had the rights to the Celtics games.
Yeah.
And they started up some sports programming. I got to work with a guy named Jimmy Clark, who fortunate enough to still work with today, and that you become great friends with as well. But went to Channel 56 in 1987. Did 6 or 7 years there, and Larry Bird retired. And when Bird retired, I thought, well, if I'm ever going to leave local sports television and go to ESPN or a larger national network, now would be the time.
Right.
And so in 93, I went to ESPN and got hired by them in the August of 90, ironically, the same exact day as I got, as Steve Levy got hired.
Yeah.
Steve and I are still great friends to this day. And
what's crazy is I would hear all these stories about Levy and Boomer and all that when Tom Brady came to Tampa and we knew the Super Bowl was going to be in Tampa. We said, we'll do a show around it. Little did we know that the Bucs would be in it. And we ended up literally, I kind of believed you, but I wasn't sure. But everywhere we went, if ESPN was anywhere, we would meet guys that you were beloved.
Sure.
Yeah, Levy and Boomer and
Sal, they all came out of the woodwork. That was a great day, by the way. We had a beautiful day down on St. Pete Beach. We did a show down there
with Gronk and his brother.
We had a lot of friends. That was a challenging time too, Fred, because it was COVID.
Right.
And so there wasn't a lot you could do. There weren't a lot of places you could go out. Everybody was really having their spirit broken. And we did a great thing and kind of brought everybody together. And
the highlight, too, was with Doug Flutie at the cigar factory. He brought the Batman mobile, and you interviewed him. And, it was actually in a unique setting where it was really almost like a talk show type setting where the audience was about 60 people. You basically had a conversation with him, and he relived some conversations you'd never hear before.
Right. Well, you
created a show.
You talked about Bob LaBelle earlier, and that era, that early to mid 80s was really Doug's time in Boston and Boston College.
Right.
And so I knew a lot about him. I knew a lot about that team. I mean, to this day, I could probably name everybody in the starting lineup for the BC Eagles in 1984, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
And a kid that I played football with in Burlington High School, Steve Strahan, was in Doug's backfield.
Yeah.
And so I had known Doug during that time and covered him a lot at Boston College and that team, and Jack Bignell, who was the coach, and they had a lot of success. Obviously, Doug goes on to win the Heisman unexpectedly. It was a
great
amazing story.
Career, and
I was front and center for it. So now let's say that's 84, 85, right? Now fast forward to 2020. It's 35 years later.
Yeah.
But I had lived that whole time period with Doug. And so my ability to sit down and talk with him and recount things that had happened and kind of be on the same wavelength with with him was very easy because I didn't have to go back and research what that time period was like with him because I
No,
lived.
you lived it.
Yeah,
It's like with Danny Ainge when he came to the Greatest Bar and they did an interview with you and you had to kind of talk.
remind Danny of all of the things that had happened during that stretch because, of course, I was doing the games at both Sports Channel and Channel 56. So I was, the Celtics and the Lakers and the Pistons and the Bulls and everybody, the big matches they had with Milwaukee and Atlanta back in the 80s, I was at every game. I
Yeah.
was at every game at the Old Garden and a lot of the games on the road. We traveled.
You actually produced Boomer's show in the early days, right?
I produced NFL Primetime I got to ESPN in 93 and started producing NFL Primetime in 94. Yeah.
Yeah, which was a great thing. At some point, you jumped off ESPN, took a leap of faith with Jimmy Clark,
Right.
and you wanted to do a TV show, which was Dirty
Water
Great.
TV, yeah.
So my podcast
Yes.
and my stories are about entrepreneurs,
Sure.
right? And Billy, you are an entrepreneur. You are
Forced into being
focused.
an entrepreneur.
You are a focused entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're not an entrepreneur that just starts businesses for the sake of starting businesses. You had a dream, you had a vision, and you wanted it to be yours. And you were part of corporate America. I mean, ESPN today, probably one of the biggest, networks in the world for sports. Definitely. You were part of that, but you jumped off and created a bar, a restaurant, and a TV show, all owned by you and others, but for the most part, led by you, as far as the face of it, the personality of it. I mean, Jimmy Clark is a guy we'll talk to more in the future, but Jimmy is, there's Laverne and Shirley. There's a variety of duos, Batman and Robin. But Jimmy
37 years we're together, yeah.
Yeah. And I love Jimmy, as you know. He and I have spent a lot of time together. You and I have spent a lot of time together. Two completely different people in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways have the same vision of doing something at a world-class level, right? Like, the one thing I love about you and Jimmy is when we do this show, we wanted to make it the best show for what we're doing. And for me, being in the beer business and the liquor business with Ice Pick and having restaurants, locations, it's about having the ability to capture the experience, the location, and the time. And you guys have done that through all the shows we've done, which we're going to go back and look at some of them in the future.
Sure.
And see where people are today and where they're going. But it's really amazing to me that you've done that. And Jimmy's showing up. Were your ears burning, Jimmy?
I've been here the whole time. It's just I don't.
Oh, you've been hearing the whole thing?
Miami.
How are we doing so far, Jim?
Pretty good. I've heard this story before.
So we were saying all those good things about you, and you were hearing them all. I'll take them all back, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. As far as I
So,
know,
Jimmy, you are right now in the great state of Minnesota. How does a guy from New York end up leaving, coming to Boston, and then ending up in Minnesota? What's that? What's that all about?
a little grandbaby did that. So yeah. Type of work I do, I can do anywhere. So that's so it made it easy.
No, and you're a family guy.
I am.
And family's first.
Yes.
I've gotten to know that about you. And I won't go into all the past, but we're gonna in these podcasts, which we'll do a few of them, we're gonna look back and we're gonna look into the future and we're gonna basically talk about the present. And right now, Billy and I are in St. Pete, Florida. He just spent the weekend. He went to the Grand Prix and he enjoyed St. Pete. He's been traveling a little bit. You've been up north. We recently did a show when you came down to Florida. That was the last time we saw each other, and you have been producing the show, and it just aired on Dirty Water TV, the show, and we captured a lot in a very short period of time, which is what we usually do. And right now, what are you working on, Jimmy?
Well, I'm still working on this Gasparilla because when we came down to shoot the event, we ended up shooting
wasn't
so
it?
much content that there was no way it could fit into a 22-minute show. So we've ended up doing one show, then a second show, and now I'm working on the third version of it. And I don't know, I'm going to switch my camera around here, and I don't know if you can see my computer a little there. And now I'm working.
So where the magic happens.
I don't know if you can remember that Detroit 201 bar.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
So that's where I'm
That was
at right
late
now.
night. That was late night.
General Burkhalter, and we're working on that right now.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing. You one to hang with Billy. I'll flash back to, I think it was before COVID, and we had gone like 3 days strong, and yet I was working the different accounts, and you guys were like, enough. We've gone to like nine bars at 3 hours. But what we didn't know were you were having some major health issues. We're at Grazzi's, and you were not doing well because you had some.
The show must go on, Fred.
Yeah,
that was Jimmy's motto.
Poor Jimmy. Jimmy was like,
had walking pneumonia.
This guy was just driving you. And then, of course, he's trying to
blame it all on me now.
He's trying to make.
The driver's going to blame it all on me.
Yeah. So I put you in a van, and Billy goes, "How do I get to? I don't know where you go to Delray or whatever from
Jupiter.
From Grazzi's in downtown St. Pete."
We drove a school bus across the state at midnight.
Honest to God, I had this bus that probably should have been. It wouldn't be street legal in New England, any state in New England, but in Florida it was street legal. And of course, Billy's. Well, he doesn't have a cell phone. He's got a flip phone, so he doesn't have GPS.
Right.
And
he's just sleep in the back. He's hooked up to an IV.
He's not going to read a map. He's not going to read a map because he's got the compass out. And
they got 18-wheelers coming at me at 2 a.m.
So he's just going
2-lane highway.
He's going east, and I don't know.
Right.
And then all I got was like
following the horizon.
And basically you had some really bad health issues. Next thing you know, they airlift you back up to Boston and get you into the hospital, and they figured out, what was going on and got you straight over a series of things because you kept going to those small little hospitals. I said, go to Mass General, but they finally got you in there and you finally got it straight, right?
Well, it took 4 years, but they couldn't figure it out. Yeah, no, I
took
was
them
actually
4 years to recover working with you, Fred.
Well. You know what? You just have a passion. You need to put yourself a little bit first. But so what we're going to talk about, Billy was taking us through the early days, the place. Take us back to the place.
Right. Well, just so that people can understand, because you're bouncing around a lot, so I'm just going to tie it all together, right? So, we started working in sports media, started working with Jimmy in 1987. And then when I went to ESPN, you don't get done with work till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. So you're out, like you used to say, why are you in a bar every night? Well, it's midnight. The libraries are closed, right? So we'd be in a bar.
Lost your library.
And there was always talk about we should get a bar someday. We should get a bar someday. And then in 2001, which is after almost 20 years in the business, we found a little bar down in the financial district. We called it The Place, and we had a legendary run in that. And we wanted to get a bigger bar. So we opened up.
What was the address?
It was 2 Broad Street.
In Boston.
Right in the heart of the financial district, just a couple blocks away from Faneuil Hall. But it was a small little bar. And so wanted to get a bigger place, and we opened up a bar called The Greatest Bar. But at the same time, now that I was in the hospitality business, we had the idea, and I went to Jimmy, how about doing a show about the hospitality business, nightlife? We can do bars and restaurants and that type of stuff.
Thank you, bro.
And Jimmy said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, we probably have no shot.
Right.
Because we're talking about having a creative show, finance a show, get it on television. Obviously, a lot of difficult and challenging moving parts to this. I said, but Jim, I think with the history that you and I had, and Jimmy and I worked together at Channel 56, the Celtic station, I said, with the history that we have and the relationship that we have and the friendship that we have, if we can stick together, and this speaks to your entrepreneurial side of things, I said, then we'll at least have a shot.
Right.
We both worked in television for a long time. We've got a great friendship. And if we can endure through the early days of trying to get this show up and running, then we'll have a shot. Now, just like when we opened up The Place, just like when we opened up The Greatest Bar, just like when you started Shipyard, or anybody else starts a new business, and again, this speaks to the entrepreneurial side, it's so challenging.
Oh, yeah.
And you face so many more obstacles than you ever imagined.
Yeah.
You know, we opened up the greatest bar and the Bruins locked out the season. Jimmy and I knew the production side, but we still needed to get a show on television. We needed to hire a cast of people. We also tried to hire salespeople to help sell it because the show had to be self-sustaining. And all of that turned out to be significantly more challenging and more difficult and more time-consuming than we ever thought, right? The greatest bar was supposed to open in 6 months. It opened in 2 years,
Yeah.
right? Dirty Water TV, we thought we'd have some sponsors right out of the gate. It took 3 years before we had any. But like I had said to Jimmy, if we can endure through the difficult and challenging times, then we'll have a shot. And just to bring it full circle, our 10-year anniversary party we had at the House of Blues for Dirty Water TV, and we had friends of ours, Huey Lewis, come in and play that night, which was awesome. Jimmy and I had our tuxedos on, and as we were standing off to the side of the stage before Huey introduced us, right after he introduced us and we started to go up to the stairs, Jimmy turned to me and this was a great moment. Just before we stepped out onto the stage, like it was like being backstage at the Oscars or whatever, right? And he said, "Hey, Billy." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Thanks for taking a shot with me."
Right.
And up we went, and we talked to 3,500 people that were House of Blues, and we celebrated the 10-year anniversary of Dirty Water TV, which is now 18 years. And but just purely from an entrepreneurial standpoint, those early years, and for anybody who's starting any business, unless you're extremely lucky, you have to be prepared for the challenges that are going to come your way in those early days and weeks and months and years. Because look, there's a reason why they say 85% of all new businesses fail, right?
Right.
Because everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And
I like to say it's about the location, it's about the people, and it's about the timing. But most importantly, it's about the passion and belief you have in it. And so you and Jimmy are a partnership.
Right.
And he complements you because he's got skill sets that you don't have.
right,
You compliment him because he has skill sets that you don't have.
right,
And the location and the timing and the passion and the belief of it gives you that. But also, you stuck with it. You basically had the belief that you could fulfill and do it. And Jimmy, and the way I see it, together, you both complement each other because he's not a guy.
Jimmy and I are Jagger and Richards.
Right.
That's it. I'm the lead singer, and he's the lead guitar player. And together we make music. It happens to be a television show, but you know, for us to work together for 37 years, both in television and sports television, and then start our own show.
Well, Jimmy,
It's a great story. Yeah.
We were in the car, in Boston, I think, and Jimmy was in the car, and we were talking, and you were going. No, maybe it was St. Pete, and you were talking about meeting and also his skill set and your skill set, and you were there in both settings with each other, complimenting each other. Going back to what year?
1987.
And Jimmy was doing what?
Jimmy was working. He'd been a sports producer at Channel 56, and then he went over to the union side of things, so he became an editor.
Yeah.
So I came in as a producer, young producer at Channel 56.
He's an editor, you're a producer.
But Jimmy wore a number of hats at Channel 56. He could shoot, he could edit, but he could also produce. He had a great passion for sports. So he was a great friend and mentor for me when I got at Channel 56. And things just clicked between Jimmy and I. You know,
Yeah.
I was a little bit younger, and I was single, and I was having fun. He had a young family, so I would come in on Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons after a night out Friday night and give him all my stories from the night before. And I'd come in Sunday morning and give him all the stories from Saturday night, and we'd literally put the show together.
And then,
You know, the highlights from the Red Sox game or the Patriots or the Bruins or whatever else. We had a half-hour sports show called Weekend Scoreboard on Channel 56, which aired for a number of years at 10:30. And first it was on Sunday nights, and then it was Saturday and Sunday nights. But we were the first show ever to come on at 10:30, half-hour show. You know, Lobel and Lynch and those guys had their Sunday night shows, but we had a 10:30 show, half-hour, which was big at the time. And Jimmy,
Well, we were the
remember-
first ones.
because the
first ones
Patriots
to do
games
that.
were not on TV.
Right.
They were all blacked out. So we
Yeah.
come on with an 8-minute highlight package
Boom.
and get
boom.
huge,
Boom.
you know, we got
Yeah.
huge ratings for that Dirty Water TV show. And that really, those 6 years of us working together at Channel 56 was the foundation
You
of,
guys literally have worked 38 years together.
yeah, since 1987. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
together, there have been times where Jimmy's done a little bit of this, you've done a little of that, but
Yeah.
overall, you've stayed connected.
Yeah, I mean, we've
And-
both kind of worked on the big picture of the show, but Jimmy's role has been much more from a production standpoint and the editing, and then my role has been more from the business standpoint and
And so
the
today,
relationships. And
he's in Minnesota,
yes,
you're in Florida,
yes,
and now
I like it here in Florida. I might come back. Yeah,
now Dirty Water TV. Yeah,
yeah,
your partner and wife Julie
yes.
has been there as well a very classy
She actually worked at Channel 56 with Jimmy and I.
with you both.
Yeah, yeah.
And you guys have 3 beautiful children, which I've
Very
gotten
fortunate.
the opportunity to meet and enjoy, and was at your celebration of the greatest bar, and got to go to England with your son, and we had a lot of
What a
fun.
thrill that was. Huh?
Oh my God, yeah! And the show that we put together for Dirty Water TV, the England trip, if anybody Googles it and goes on to it, is priceless. For me, it was amazing.
Well,
And
You know, Fred, you always say we're going to have some fun, right?
Right.
We try to find those moments along the way where we can enjoy ourselves. When you and I were on the stage at the Cavern Club,
Oh, my
the
God.
legendary club where the Beatles played in Liverpool,
yeah,
and we're up with our microphones on the stage.
you grabbed me,
Right.
go up on the stage. The big guy, the bouncer, is like coming at us. You go, and he looks.
Right. Yeah, they did not want us on
He
that
didn't,
stage.
no, he didn't want us on that stage.
We were going all the way to Liverpool
Yeah.
to not get on that stage, Fred.
And-
You know that.
But you could feel the spirit of the Beatles.
Oh, without a doubt.
And the people that were in there enjoying the music and the sound being, and you don't realize it. It's like 3 or it might be 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 stories down.
Right. Cavern Club is aptly named.
Right. And
I mean, it looks like an old
oh,
train station or something, like,
Or
like train tunnel, right?
well, the brick was like, it was like,
Archways,
And-
right.
and I mean, I love bars. I love having a few drinks in pubs in England and New England and pretty much anywhere. But that had to be one of the more unique times of my life, because I'm sitting there and I was literally, my body was just vibrating with the energy,
Right, yeah.
the energy of the music and the sounds and the pictures, and
It was magical. And we all knew it. We all kind of recognized it.
James Coyle and
Great guy
Yeah.
was our host there. You know, and Jimmy and I, even though our background has been in sports television and now the hospitality business with Dirty Water TV, but, you know, we're sports guys.
well,
We did the Celtics games. Jimmy's New York
but
guys.
Jimmy's a music guy too.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
Going to the Cavern Club for Jimmy and I, because we are big music guys as well,
Yeah.
was almost like a holy grail for us. So when we
But-
talk about, and this goes back to entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
right? But Jimmy says, well, what's going to happen? I said, well, Jim, if we stick together, we'll have a shot
Right.
at some success in
Right.
business or fun. And now we find ourselves 18 years after launching this show that nobody ever thought, including
Yeah.
us, was going to get on TV or
Mhm.
really ever become anything. And now we're doing a show from the Cavern Club in Liverpool.
Right.
Kind
Right.
of surreal, right?
Very surreal. And then we did the show up in Portland where we went to the sound studio, and next you know, Jimmy's up there playing. He's talking about,
It's like Jim Croce.
right?
Yeah.
Talking about your band as a kid, right? What was the band, Jimmy, when you were a kid? What was your band?
The Stargazers was one of them.
Yeah. On Long Island, or where were you?
Yeah, that was Long Island, Merrick, Long Island.
Yeah.
Like 8 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old. We used to
Yeah.
we used to play bar mitzvahs and
You could have been Billy
CYO
Joel. What happened?
dances and all these competitions we entered in and always won.
Yeah.
It was great. It was fun.
You ever contact or connected with any of your own band members? Are they?
Not
And
really. It's been so long ago. And then we had in high school. I moved away when I went my high school
Yeah.
years to upstate New York. So And then I became a soloist at that point. So I was doing more solo stuff. And then when I got
But
to
if you go
Boston,
to Jimmy's office where he edits and where
Yeah.
he's set up,
Yeah,
he has his acoustic guitar
right there.
right next to the computer. And I think what happens is when Jimmy gets like a little brain
I don't know if you can
lie
see.
about, what he's going to do or where he's going to go with the
Oh,
show,
there he is, right
Right.
there.
he sits
Oh,
down
God.
and he gets a little music in his soul,
That's awesome.
gets a little clarity, and he
That's
sits
awesome.
down and starts editing the show again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I wish I had that, just a little bit of that talent. I can play a little bit of the harmonica, so I used to love Jay Giles. But the reality is, there are hidden talents in everybody. I've talked about this in the past, like our staff and our different locations. Everybody, they might be a bartender, they might be a general manager, but they have something else in their life that, or a variety of other things in their life that come out. And one thing about Billy, I never, he's got a great voice and a great singer. And we almost had, on one of the shows, we were up on the top of, it was at Sunset
Like Cambria.
at the Cambria Hotel
Yeah.
in Madeira Beach. And your grandfather had a great song. So
Did, yeah.
I don't know if you got it in you, but do
You want me to sing the
yeah,
song?
I want you to sing the song.
All right. So he used to sing, and my grandfather was a real character. You say, Gramps, you play any musical instruments? No. And then, he'd pick up a banjo and he'd play, or he could pick up a harmonica, and he was a world-class harmonica.
What was his name?
Gus. Yeah, Edgar Fairweather was one of 16 kids.
Yep.
His father was a contemporary of Thomas Edison, and then helped open up Gillette Razor Company with King Gillette.
That's amazing.
And my grandfather my grandfather was one of 16 kids. He left home when he was 14.
Yep.
I said, Gramps, why did you leave home when you were 14? He said, I was one of 16 kids. I didn't think anybody would miss me. And was a real character.
Oh, yeah.
Worked on the Alcan Highway, and I was, I lived with him for a little while I was a kid, him and my grandmother, and, he would pick me up on Saturday mornings after I'd play hockey. He was a truck driver for Gulf Oil.
Yeah.
And he would bring me through Everett and Chelsea and Revere and the North End for all the stops. And everywhere he went, everybody knew him. Hey, Gus, how you doing? We stopped in every restaurant we went in, and he was just that type of guy. He knew everybody. He was a real character, and so he was a great guy for me to kind of, as I was growing up and saw how he was and how he interacted with people. Well, he took me with him.
Know him. Yeah.
So I'd be sitting on a little stool with him and by his side when I was 10, 11, 12 years old in the dingy, dark little bars at Chelsea and Everett. And I said, I kind of like it in here. I don't know. And so, bars have always been a little bit of home for me.
Right.
But, And so his song was, I digressed a little bit. His song was one of many that he had, but he would sing, I'm a rambler, I'm a gambler, I'm a long way from home. If people don't like me, they can leave me alone. I'll eat when I'm hungry and I'll drink when I'm dry. And if the whiskey don't kill me, I'll drink till I die. And then he'd eat a dozen oysters. And
here's the guy.
Here's two of them.
The guys. Yeah. Everybody has
The best.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I was named after my Uncle Fred, who was my mom's sister's husband, and he was a beer guy, oddly enough, and he would drive me around. He loved cigars, and I love this. To this day, I can't smoke cigars because of my reflux, but I love the smell of cigars. And he was a liquor salesman, a beer salesman in Methuen, Mass. And, similarly, I looked up to him and seeing him in action, and same thing with you. And this is what makes you. And I'm sure, your kids and I saw your relationship with your sons and your daughter, and they're all very, they emulate different aspects of you, not all of it, thank God, right? But
they're great kids.
They're great kids.
And they have a zest for life. And I think I learned that from my grandfather, and I think I've passed that on to my children. The got a great friend of mine, and Jimmy knows him, Mike Grinnell. He was one of the first guys got into bar business with me, and his dad was a real character, and he used to always say when we were asking him about things, he'd say, "It's life. It's not a dress rehearsal.
No,
you don't get to do it again."
no.
And I've always kind of taken those words to heart. You have one life, and it goes quicker than you think, and you have to live it.
We have to live
I
it.
think
We do.
our relationship and everything that you have had.
Let's go back to a moment, right? So moments.
Yeah.
We're sitting in the greatest bar.
Right.
I don't know the exact date, but it was in the heart of COVID. And we somehow come back from Florida, and we're sitting there in your bar, and it's completely dark.
Right.
And the bar
It'll close for a year.
it's closed down. And, at that time, you had to do some pretty dramatic things. You had to actually file bankruptcy because your landlord had pulled a fast one.
Right.
But I'm sitting there with you, and we're both our businesses were in deep trouble. I mean, I know mine was, and yours had been closed for a number of months, and we didn't know what the future held. A lot of our friends closed their businesses. A lot of people said to you, maybe it's time to
there was no faith that we were going to make it.
Right.
I mean, even with my closest friends and business partners, the prevailing sentiment was, we'll give it our best shot, and we did, but that things did not look good. And why would they look good?
Right.
Bars and restaurants were closing left and right. And for the people who were in charge were so callous enough to be saying, well, you might never open up again. Or bars might never come by.
The sports bar in Boston, they forced, shut down, got everything, sold it all off. Our good friend Roger at the Beantown, we all were questioning what was going to happen.
Because it gets to a point of that, if you had any money, how much of your own personal money are you going to put into a business that's not open? Not that it's failing, it's not open. And the politicians are telling you, we don't know if or when you're ever going to open again.
Yeah.
You remember, we closed in March of 2020. We didn't reopen until almost May of 2021.
Right.
And prior to that, we had a mayor in the city of Boston who was telling us that nothing in Boston was going to open until late August.
Right.
It wasn't until Charlie Baker said, okay, well, no, we're going to open up in May, that things changed and gave us a chance.
So we're sitting there at the bar.
Yeah.
It's black, pitch black. And I think you had an ice pick, and I had a monkey fist that was a little older. And you said, Freddie, we're not storming the beaches of Normandy. I'll never forget that line. We're not storming the beaches of Normandy. A lot of people have dealt with a lot more.
We're not walking through the rice paddies of Vietnam. No. We're not going up the Twin Towers on 9/11.
No.
So this is our cross to bear. And we got to be tough.
Not that it's anything close to it, but we're not going to give up. We're not going to quit.
Right.
And we were in Miami at the Miami Lobster Shack.
Right. My partner.
You're on the parking lot on the phone, and you come back like a ghost. It's just
my partner, who's a great guy, Jimmy Hickey, and he's been with me from the beginning in the bar business. We went to high school together, and obviously have gone through a lot in the greatest bar. I mean, we could do an entrepreneur show just on the greatest bar.
Yeah.
What it took for us to get open, what it took for us to endure.
And not quit. No.
Right. And he called me, and he just said, look, I hope you realize, like, the time is running through the hourglass.
Yeah.
And we're probably, we had some artwork that we were looking at. We were looking for every way.
We went through and looked
to have revenue
pieces. You said, this might be worth this. This
we had stuff appraised. We were doing everything we could to because, again, the money that was in the business had run out now.
Right.
It was almost a year later.
Right.
And he was like, I don't think you understand the severity of this situation. Yeah. And I just paused for him, and I said, okay, Jim, you got it? I get your message. And I said, listen to me. We are not shutting down.
Yeah.
We are not shutting down. I don't care what it takes. We're going to
stay open somehow, some way.
We are going to, and this thing is going to endure, not always knowing how, but
we're going to get
those fight. Look at, and there were a lot of smarter, better bars and restaurants and all these places that people who had more net worth and that they just weren't making it.
Yeah.
I think for us, the greatest bar was such a part of our life that it wasn't just about shutting down a restaurant that that wasn't making it because of COVID.
You had nowhere else to go.
Had nowhere else to go. Right. Failure was not an option. And
Yeah.
same thing was very true with Jimmy and I
Yeah.
in Dirty Water TV. Failure wasn't an option because at that point you were talking about, keeping a roof over your head or keeping food on the table.
And it's truly an entrepreneurial story. It's truly an entrepreneurial story because your leadership, it was your leadership that everybody else followed. You know what I mean? And
Right.
in my instance, we had everybody at every location, every week, they would all talk. And each location we had all of them had moments where they thought, all right, we're not going to be back. And it's easy to look back and go, of course you were going to make it. But I won't name the names, but a lot of businesses, my same size, your same situation,
Right.
gave up and they're not open any longer.
Right.
They're not here anymore.
No,
and
he hung on by a thread.
Yeah. And
Literally.
you had good counsel. You had good people around you.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough. My wife, Judy, figured out the PPP. We had bankers that supported us. I had some good landlords that gave us suspended rent. I had others that were a little tougher, but the reality is I fed off you. I fed off others, our friends, our family. Go up.
You're looking for any hope.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reality is, like you said, we weren't in a situation where we just had to believe we were going to get forward. Nobody was shooting real bullets at us, but at times it felt like it.
Well, and the hardest thing about that was, we face daily challenges now with business or life or whatever, and you say, okay, I have to figure this out.
Yeah.
With COVID, it was politicians saying, we're shutting you down.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it, and we have no answers for you to justify what we're doing or even how long we're going to do it for.
Yeah.
When we filed bankruptcy, we went during the COVID situation. We went and met with the landlord, and the landlords are like, "Well, we're not going to shut you down. This is not your fault, right?"
Yeah.
And of course, we were still paying rent at that point, even though we weren't open, didn't have a business. The first month that we didn't make rent, the first of them, 3 days later, they filed bankruptcy against us. And then
they filed a lawsuit against you.
They filed bankruptcy. They wanted us.
Well, they want to put you into bankruptcy.
They want us out. They weren't happy. They had bought the building. They weren't happy with the current.
They wanted to redo the lease.
So they used COVID to say, all right, we're going to back you up now.
Yeah.
But when COVID's over, we're going to double your rent.
Right.
And we're like, well, we're not going to agree to those terms. So when we didn't make 2 months later, we didn't make the rent payment. 3 days later, bang, they filed bankruptcy. Now, I go back to Jimmy Hickey, who was key to this whole situation, who's my partner, and he's a CPA. He said, well, there's a provision in the PPP that if somebody files evicts you. I keep saying they evicted us.
Yeah.
Okay, so they filed eviction notice against us. And he said, if our landlords file eviction, there's a clause in the PPP that we can file bankruptcy. He goes, it's not something we want to do.
No.
But it's an 11th hour stay of execution. So when they filed the eviction papers, we filed bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And then it was game on. And that took another 6-8 months to go through. And then when we were trying to get out of bankruptcy to get open, and we were going through the paperwork with the judge is like, well, it could be 3 years before you're open.
Yeah.
So nobody who had any authority was giving you any optimism as to what business was going to come back and things going to be okay. And the truth of the matter is, from the day we reopened after COVID until now, there's been no looking back.
Yeah.
Business has never been better.
Yeah.
There was a 2-year period, that people just wanted to get back out again. I mean, that was the great, if you were able to survive COVID, everybody came out like it was the end of World War II.
Right.
It was a huge
the entrepreneurial story is just stay focused and keep moving. And you did that. You persevered. Jimmy.
Yes.
So you've been a good friend to Billy, and Billy's been a good friend to you. I mean, at what point, have there ever been moments you say to yourself, can I keep up with this guy? Right? I'm like, I even say to myself, he's been up in Portland, Maine, Billy, you got to go home, man.
I knew
You
from
must
day
have
one.
moments, right?
Day one, I knew I could never keep up with him. Are you kidding me? Nobody
Hey, a
can.
Boston guy and a New Yorker. What the hell? How's that even work?
Well, you know what? There's something to be said for people from the Northeast, and I'll
Yeah.
include Maine in that as well.
Okay.
I think the weather has something to do with it. It toughens everybody up, and
Yeah.
and that's the thing I've noticed when I come out here to the Midwest. Everybody's so friendly, and you know, they say where you from and the whole thing, and I tell them, and they go, "Well, you guys are pretty direct, pretty blunt," and I go, "Yeah, you know exactly where we stand." And
Yeah.
I think it's the same whether you're in New York, Boston, Portland, Maine, wherever. It's you know, it's that type of culture.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I mean, what makes it fun is that you want to get to the sports rivalries between Boston and New York. I think it used to be all in good fun, but now I think we've taken it to a crazy
Got a
level.
little rough.
Some people, but I've always said the toughest championship was going to be the 28th. So
Yeah. Well, my son-in-law and now my grandson are both Yankee fans, so I have to endure that, but it's okay. We let that go. They come down for spring training and we'll go to a game. But it's true. The sports brings us together and puts us on different sides. It gives some exciting things. And I mean, the greatest bar is probably one of the best sports bars that I've ever been to. And Dirty Water TV is definitely a unique media outlet. And one of the things that I've been telling both you and Billy, it's like almost like a gold mine, or there's gold in those hills, because I think looking back, I want to, with you and Billy and others, mine that goal, right? And look back to moments, not only predominantly in my Shipyard and Ice Pick and our shows, both in, New England and Florida and England, but also with you and Billy, because one, I love spending time with you guys and I have a great respect for your abilities, but two, I also feel this content is exciting, interesting, and unique. It's very unique because everybody right now, alcohol is under attack, right? Like they're going to put on, the U.S. government wants to say that alcohol causes cancer and it basically kills you. So I have a belief that bars and restaurants and socializing brings people closer together, right? Of course, we know there's limits in that, but your show, for a great extent, has been about catching people in an environment where they're socializing, where they're in social settings with food and drink and also a living life. And right now, so much of society is about political correctness and, really not upsetting anybody and trying to fit in. And you've captured in probably the 20 years or 18 years of history, Dirty Water TV, with people having fun, living their lives. And you've pretty much, between our shows in the UK and places in the Bahamas and Bermuda, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you guys have captured a lot of...
We've done over 200 locations in relation with Shipyard. 200 locations.
Just ours.
Just for the Ice Pick.
So we're going to go... So this is going to be part of, Billy's like, what are you doing? I've explained to you, we're going to look back, we're going to look forward, and we're going to talk about the moments, and what does it mean to entrepreneurship? What are some of these entrepreneurs we've interviewed with, and where are they now, type of thing? Because, it's important and it's fun, so.
No, I
know
agree.
about
I mean,
Minnesota. Are we ever going to do a show in Minnesota? Is there anything up there? We'll go ice fishing. What are we going to do?
Don't be able to keep the beers cold there.
What are we going to do?
I don't know. There are a lot of breweries up here, though, and I don't know how they're doing. But yeah, I think that and hockey. Hockey is gigantic up here too. You should see the local high school.
How about good bars? We have any good bars we could maybe get a draft line or ice pick in?
I have this. There's actually two, but one I can walk to from my, from my condo here. And
Well, that's your
a
account,
great
then.
dive bar.
That's your account.
What's that?
That's your account. We'll have to
Get
get ice
ice
cream.
picking in.
Ice.
What do I
It'll
get?
start there in
50%?
Minnesota.
But yeah, no, it's it's hockey is so big up here. Talk about sport.
Yeah.
It's gigantic. And
Well, I
You
never
just see
played hockey like Billy and his kids did, but I like watching it, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like we got a show in Minnesota yet.
well,
We'll
I
get
don't know.
there.
Yeah, probably not.
Jimmy and I tend to lean towards the sunshine states.
Yeah.
Right? When
Yeah,
it's cold, we like to get warm. When it's
Yeah.
warm, we're on the Vineyard or Cape Cod or
Yeah.
Nantucket to Newport, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've been fortunate that way too, that the show has brought us to a lot of places that we've really enjoyed. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
again, I'll go back to that show that we did at the UK, but Jimmy and I have done shows in Mexico and Punta Cana and Las Vegas and New York City.
In Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
done
I
a
mean-
couple of shows in Las Vegas. Yeah,
So,
I can remember them, but I think we would.
yeah, we've done them at ski resorts, Sunday River, Sugarloaf.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're on
not
Loon
a
Mountain
ball.
too, way back.
yeah. Loon Mountain, early days. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've done the show with, we have a lot of friends that are in the industry as well.
Yeah.
In the bar restaurant industry. And so it's brought those relationships and those people into the mix, whether it's been the Jimmy Rooney's and Baseball Tavern or John Higgins and Pig's Tickets or the Glenn Group or the Breyer Group or
Yeah.
the Kilroy family down in Newport, Rhode Island, and we've worked extensively with them, or John Shea and so many great bars and restaurants down in Cape Cod. So we've made great relationships and great
Dan
friends.
and Billy's great
Yeah,
adventure.
Ian's, short-lived. Speaking of entrepreneurship, that's still a work in progress. But yeah, I mean, we've done stuff with our great friend Dan McNutt up in Portland, Maine, and then we did another awesome show down in Key West.
Yeah.
So it's been cool that it's allowed Jimmy and I to keep our friendship alive in some ways by seeing each other.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens with friends. Oh, we never see each other anymore. Well,
Yeah.
Jimmy and I see each other all the time because of the show, and even now that he lives in Minnesota, we stay close and stay connected. And, it's a little tougher with him being away and not being able to see him as much, but we'll make it work.
Yeah. Well,
Let's do a show.
Let's do a show. Let's do a show.
Model, yeah.
My mom always said that everybody has something to offer, right?
That's right.
So for lack of a bolt, the tire was lost. For loss of the tire, the Jeep was lost. For loss of that Jeep, the battle was lost. For loss of that battle, the war was lost.
Right.
So everybody is important. Everybody's part of it. And anybody who's on your side, and I've always felt fortunate to have you on my side, Billy, and you too, Jimmy, and we're going
We
to
make sure that the bolts are tight for it.
got to tighten them up.
We do. We tighten
It's all about
The ratchet
Oh,
out.
really? You think about all the disasters. It's always the little details that people forget about, and we're hoping not to do that. So,
Well, you started talking about the time difference and the challenges that we have
yeah,
traveling, going over to the UK, and your ridiculous philosophy about how somehow it's 6 hours later than it is. But we digress. Where we found ourselves on that trip were on the Tower Bridge in London, in the Cavern Club in Liverpool, in great historical places in Manchester.
infield at the soccer,
Right.
Well,
in the
football,
on
right?
theoretically.
theoretically.
So much history of
Yeah,
town and the city and sports. We're sports guys.
yeah.
So to be on the pitch in Anfield, what a thrill.
Spiritual,
Breathtaking, and the relationships that
in the locker room,
and how great everybody treated us over there was really,
that would
really
be very,
special.
very fortunate. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll keep doing it. We'll keep doing it, and then to the next show, to the next adventure.
Absolutely.
Cheers, my
You've
friend.
had a great, from Bruce, was one of the first guys that got us going.
Yeah,
And Jason Donati, who was a great beer salesman and brought us all around with Southeastern Mass locations and really got us tied to his relationships on the Vineyard and down there. We've had some great relationships and done some great shows and had a fun time in the process.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Very lucky.
very lucky. Cheers. Have a beer with Fred.
See you, boys.
whoever he is.
We'll see you, Jimmy.
Take care, boys.
Stay warm, my friend.
I'm trying.
Enjoy.
See ya.
God bless.
I'm going to go get some more flip-flops.